What's up, y'all? TBrown31 here with JaboctheGreat. Once again, we're back with another episode of The Last Word. And as you can see by the title, this is our free agency special for the 2024 NFL offseason. We've already kind of covered some of the biggest moves from the past few days. Free agencies, like we said, started real fast, real quick. I think it's been going pretty crazy so far. So now we're going to just kind of backtrack and just kind of go through this week, outside of those huge signings that we had before we did our video a few days ago, kind of just go from there, talk about some of the biggest things that have happened since, some of the bigger ones that we didn't cover early on. So let's just get right into it. So to start off, first thing that kind of really catches my eye, just going back to like early in the week, a lot of the running back stuff. We talked about it a little bit a few days ago with Saquon and Derrick Henry, but it's been a whole lot more that's going on. So let's just say DeAndre Swift, he went to the Bears. You got Tony Pollard going to the Tennessee Titans from Dallas. You got Josh Jacobs going to the Packers. And then for like 5 minutes, you had the best running back duo in the league. And then Packers said, not so fast, my friend. They get rid of Aaron Jones. So Aaron Jones is gone, and he ends up going to the Vikings. So running back group has probably been the biggest thing that's going on this offseason. It seems like every offseason now, it's been a lot more focused on running backs aren't getting paid what they should. They're not getting used right. They're, basically getting used up for the rookie contract and not paid after that. This season, it's a lot of guys being on the move, a lot of big names. So, how would you, describe this little flurry? Like, who would you say is the biggest move, outside of Saquon and Derrick Henry so far out of that little group?
Yeah, I think I like the Bears and DeAndre Swift, but I'm not sure that one entirely moved me. I actually really like the kind of style of running back that Josh Jacobs is and that Packers offense that we saw last year. I think with Jordan Love, Jaden Reed is a very good young core, and Josh Jacobs isn't old, so I think I like him as a good fit there. Aaron Jones with the Vikings is also good, except that I don't know what they're doing with the quarterback situation right now. So that makes me a little wary of he's good. He was obviously good with a young quarterback last year. But Jordan Love also had flashes of greatness during that season, and I think that helps that whole offense. I think that would have been great if it was Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs. That would have definitely been the running back duo. But I guess Green Bay was nah, we don't want that one. We'll send him to our rival. So the Vikings weapons room looks really loaded. I did last year when they had Kirk. My issue with the Vikings now is that they don't have Kirk. I think an underrated one, at least it would be, but it's kind of the same issue, is that Devin Singletary goes to the Giants to replace Saquon. Obviously a much different runner. He's not as big, not as strong. Still a good running back. Still a kind of bruiser type running back. He's just Saquon is a monster as far as physicality goes. And I think that Devin Singletary would be able to make a big splash with sort of a different focus on the running game in New York, if New York had anything else going on. It's a really good defense over there so far. They're building up a pretty stout defense. I don't hate Daniel Jones, but I don't think he's the second coming of Tom Brady. And
That's fair.
Which you don't have to be a good quarterback. You can be a good quarterback and be you don't have to be at the top tier of that stratosphere, right? There are players in the NBA who are amazing that are not on the MJ LeBron pedestal. That doesn't make them not good. They can still be good. But I think the Devil Singletary with the Giants could make a lot of moves on that offense if there was more going on. So I guess really, I think I like the Josh Jacobs move the most. Maybe a little shaky. Tony Pollard to the Titans is big, but again, it's another. All these running backs are in places where I think they're going to be great pieces, but there's something else missing with the offense. So maybe honestly, DeAndre Swift, as that team picked up Keenan Allen, got some receiver moves to talk about here today too. I think maybe DeAndre Swift just makes that team a little more whole, even if whether they have Justin Fields or Caleb Williams. I think there's already I can see a complete vision for that offense. Things are coming together. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, nasty duo. DeAndre Swift is a really good running back. Kind of hold up that duo. Justin Fields is a good quarterback, despite what people are going to say. And if they decide to move from Justin, they get Caleb Williams. I'm not going to put the most faith into a rookie immediately, but I do think that again that he could make that gel. So I really feel like all these moves are kind of the same. These guys all went places to where they add a lot to that offense. They're just missing the top piece of the offense, not top as in most, the best player there. But top is just like it's gonna kind of tie everyone together. So I don't know. I'm gonna go with either DeAndre Swift or Josh Jacobs. I think. Um, but yeah, the receivers. There's some stuff going on there. Let's see. Gabe Davis ends up leaving Buffalo to go over to Jacksonville, which sends Calvin Ridley to Tennessee, and then for a lot of money. We can get into that if you'd like to. Then we get Darnell Mooney going to Falcons to join Big Kirko down there. Um, Curtis Samuel leaves Washington to go replace Gabe Davis. A lot of interesting receiver moves. They feel kind of similar to the running back moves, where it's like aside from the Derrick Henry one, these are and Saquon. These are like good receivers that are going around. Deontay Johnson to the Panthers, we covered a little bit, but I'm not sure that they're like team altering and like in crazy ways. Gabe Davis of Jacksonville could be pretty impactful. I think that Darnell Mooney playing with Kirk could be good, but they also just got Rondale Moore in a trade. They got rid of Desmond Ritter, so I think the Falcons are probably going to use Rondale Moore and Drake London more than they would Darnell Mooney. I don't know. As far as receivers go, I'm not sure which one I think is the biggest, except, oh yeah, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen goes to Chicago, pairs up with DJ Moore. He's a little older. He's hurt. They had flashes last season where I was like, oh yeah, this dude is still good at football. And I think that he's going to be big there. And I guess on a side note, I want to hear your thoughts on the receiver moves in general first. But I will say on the side note that the Chargers' weapons are draining. Eckler is gone. He went to the Commanders. That's I don't think going to do much. And then Mike Williams was cut, and now Keenan Allen was traded for a bag of Cheetos to Chicago. They got a fourth-round pick in return. So I think that's a pretty big move. Marquise Brown to the Chiefs is good as well. But I don't know what the Chargers are planning to do. I don't know who Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert wants Justin Herbert to be thrown to, but there ain't nobody there right now.
Yeah, the Chargers, they had to get under the cap and everything. And we knew this is, I wouldn't say we knew exactly this was coming, like who exactly they're going to release, but we knew that they're going to have to get rid of some big stars, get guys under the cap because they can't just pay everybody. They have all these stars on the team, these big time guys that you expect to get money. Like they just weren't going to be able to pay all of them. So it's that in that sense, it's not that surprising. We knew this, at coming up to the end of the season, even when the Chargers were obviously dead in the water, like we were having discussions about, what are the Chargers going to be doing? Who's going to be restructuring, Joey Bosa, Khalil, like everybody out there. I was about to say San Diego, but everybody out there in LA for the Chargers, like all those guys, are they going to restructure? Are going to be traded? Are they going to be cut? So in that sense, it's not surprising. But like you said, I mean, Austin Eckler, we didn't even mention him like at first. Like he's another running back move there. Um, Mike Williams getting cut straight up, and then Keenan Allen. That's probably the biggest thing to me. Keenan Allen can definitely still play. It's just the Chargers receivers, they just weren't healthy the past few years. They weren't on the field. Like that's the biggest thing. So if he's healthy, great receiver. He's been consistent since he came into the league about 10 years ago. Like he'll be fine, and that'll be a great, you would think, great veteran presence for either Justin Fields or Caleb Williams, whoever that quarterback's going to be. Now, in my opinion, it's hard to say because we've only seen Justin in teams that haven't really had much. This year they had more. He wasn't great. I expected more of an improvement overall, but we didn't see that. I think Caleb Williams, they've been. I'm gonna watch my words here. They've been hyping him up a little bit too much. And I watched the man's
Yeah.
first game when he came in, for Spencer Rattler back at Oklahoma. Like seeing that live, seeing him lead the team the rest of that season. Like he's always been great, but I think it's just like acting like he's literally God is a little much. But I think he definitely has a lot of potential. So in that sense, do you want to make that move and not not have a chance of getting another top receiver? Like if you get Marvin Harrison Jr., DJ Moore, and then Keenan Allen in one receiving core,
Yeah.
like come on, like because by the time Marvin gets paid, like maybe Keenan's not going to be there, and like make DJ Moore's like I don't know, but that would be a crazy receiving core. So for me, that would be the biggest move receiving wise, but also what it does for the Chargers, in the sense that hey, you if you let go pretty much all your skill players on offense, I mean, you don't really have much there. So I'm guessing they're expecting the rookies that they got to step up now, and the rookies that they'll end up getting to step up. But it's going to be a little bit of a struggle there. But I'm sure. Well, I can't be guaranteed sure, but I'm sure that Harbaugh and that front office out there, they'll figure it out. But I would absolutely say Keenan Allen will be the biggest move. The rest of the moves you kind of mentioned, like the Bills let Gabe Davis go, they signed Curtis Samuel. You know, Jaguars get Gabe Davis, they let Calvin Ridley go to Tennessee. I always like Calvin Ridley, but like I don't want to jump on the hate train of everybody just crapping on him for the contract. I mean, get your money, I guess, but like 100 million for Calvin at this point, like I don't really get that. But it seems like we just see these moves more and more, every single off season. So it's not that surprising, I guess, but not a move that I would have made. And lastly, is a move that hasn't happened yet, but also ties into a running back move. You had Joe Mixon going to the Houston Texans, so obviously helping out CJ Stroud even more. And also, one of his teammates, T. Higgins, requested a trade. Contract negotiations, obviously, they ain't going too well. You got franchise tags, so most guys don't really appreciate that. So, if he's not going to be there, I would I would be a lot less optimistic as a Bengals fan because now you're gonna have to you're gonna have to have somebody step up, take up Joe Nixon's spot, or Joe Mixon, excuse me, and obviously, you're not going to be able to pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase that same amount of money, like top tier. Um, so if T. Higgins walks, you absolutely got to get somebody to replace him. So I'd say for the Bengals and then just like for the Chargers, like they definitely have to make some moves here offensively, and then Tyler Boyd as well. He's also a free agent too. So yeah, they both these teams for me it's less about what they brought in and more about what they let go.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bengals are in a situation that's getting more grim as time progresses. But I don't know. I think that they're the least threatening team now in that division. Those other teams have made pretty good moves, but I am I'm not sure what they're trying to do. That's what I think. I'm just confused on what their moves have been. They have made some interesting choices as far as like who's going to go, and I get it. You can't pay all those guys all that money, but I think that's. I would rather keep Jamar than T. Higgins, I guess. I mean, Jamar's better for sure so far. T. Higgins has had some injury issues, but it is like when does where does T. Higgins go? As a big thing we've been looking at. I was kind of hoping the Panthers would make a move to try to get him, but they have not moved in that direction. So I'm not sure about that. We got Deontay Johnson instead. That's a good pickup. I would prefer T. Higgins, but maybe we don't have the pieces to go for T. Higgins. But yeah, I think the Chargers and Bengals stand out greatly as a team as teams that have lost more than they gained. Maybe the Cowboys as well. They haven't signed anybody yet, and they just cut two people today, and they lost Tony Pollard. So I'm just not sure what they're doing either. They can't really be categorized by their gains. And then I like to pivot here. I think for a little fun segment. The free agency so far has been really good. There's been some big moves, but there's also been a mass exodus as usual of the backup borderline starter quarterback guy.
Oh
I
my God.
would say backup white man. I say that
Whoa.
as I say that joking as a white man myself. But it has not just been the white boys on the move. So we've got like every single backup quarterback I think has moved, right? None of these these don't all have to be broken down for their massive impact on the
Right.
NFL. But we've had Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Brissett, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, Sam Darnold, Sam Howell, Drew Lock, Jimmy Garoppolo, Joe Flacco. I think that's all. Have all
Yeah, this sounds about right.
have all moved teams. just a massive. Oh, and Kenny Pickett is traded to the Eagles
Oh
today.
yeah,
Um,
him too. I
so,
want to talk about
so
that one actually
yeah,
specifically.
that's a good one to talk about. But I'll pivot to you and let you handle that. But there's this interesting sort of mass movement of backup quarterbacks the past 2 days.
When I look at all these QB moves, I'm sitting here saying like I'm the Rock. Who in the blue? I'm not going to say that, but look, I none of these moves. I mean, like okay, it just like it doesn't matter to me. I would say because Colts. Let's see. Joe Flacco with the Colts. Anthony Richardson's obviously going to be there, coming back. He missed all of last year for the most part. Hopefully, he can stay healthy because he got injured a whole lot in just those first few games. So it's always good to have a veteran QB back there. Gardner Minshew was there before stepping in. Now you're going to have Joe Flacco after that year that he had, with the Browns. Obviously, playoff game wasn't as great, but I mean, Joe Flacco was literally like he wasn't doing anything. So I mean, until he got to the Browns and had such a really good season, to finish it out. So either way, it makes sense for me. For the Colts to at least have some kind of veteran presence back there and somebody that we've at least seen in recent memory actually do something, leading a team. Not to act like Joe Flacco was an MVP, but like he clearly like had still has something, right? So for me, that I think that's kind of the I don't want to say biggest move, I guess, but that's probably the most notable one. Just in the instance of Anthony Richardson hopefully not getting injured, but having that veteran presence behind him. Uh, Sam Howell, maybe I don't think they'll do anything with Geno. Like I don't think Seattle's gonna let Geno go. But obviously I wouldn't imagine Geno's gonna be the forever quarterback there. Um, Obviously not as good of a season this year as the year before, but he's still kind of just in that weird little spot. So I would imagine Geno's still the quarterback out there. Maybe Sam eventually develops. We don't know. Like a lot of these guys come in, we expect them to be good. The team around them may not be as good, and then they just kind of fizzle out after a couple of years. So we see it happen all the time. Um, the rest of them, though, I mean, Desmond Ritter, like to Atlanta, nothing really there. Jimmy G, that one, him getting released is not really that surprising by the Raiders. But then him signing with the Rams, like that was interesting. Uh, Kind of surprising to be honest with you. Obviously he's not going to
Yeah.
start this year. So I guess Jimmy G is just like a full time backup now. Uh, but really the one for me is Kenny Pickett. That happened a couple hours ago. Obviously the Steelers they signed Russell Wilson, of course, for pretty much nothing. Um, Mason Rudolph, he's gone, obviously. So you're expecting it to be Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett. Russell Wilson only signed a 1 year deal. Now, if Russell wins MVP or some crap like that, of course he'll be there longer. But there's no guarantee that Russell Wilson was going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback going forward. Like maybe this year was just a Russell Wilson is still absolutely good, plays well. Maybe goes and gets it back somewhere else, and maybe he stays. But there could have been a good chance that it's just a rehabilitation year for him. Gets his image back out there, saying he's still that guy. He moves on, and then Kenny Pickett can learn behind him. I mean, you can compete against them, at least in practice. Like again, you would think Russell's going to be a starter, but not a lot of good reports coming out about Kenny Pickett right now. Obviously, the play on the field, we saw that team. We know how many issues the offense had, but Kenny Pickett wasn't great. That's for sure. And I'm not gonna sit here and act like I know the man, but if it is the case of they told him Russell Wilson's going to be the starter, and he just said, "Nah, get me out of here." Like I don't know what you're really expecting. And now that he's going to Philly, what do you think he's going to do there? Because at least in Russell Wilson's case, the man 35 on a 1 year deal. Like Kenny could have maybe come back in if he looked better. You ain't unless Jalen Hurts dies. Like you're not gonna start Jalen Hurts anytime soon. So now Kenny's really just stuck in purgatory. So if that is the case and that's the way he was handling things, like he's got some growing up to do. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think the Kenny Pickett one has the most to unpack. We're going to add to that as well. I did forget to mention that Mason Rudolph also went to the Titans, so we had one more move around. I don't think that one does a lot of movement, but for me, yeah, the Kenny Pickett thing is odd, and the reports have been bad. Right, people refuse to suit up at the end of the season for the Steelers, and then as soon as Russell Wilson got there, he apparently quote unquote wasn't handling it well. So I guess he requested the trade. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, I don't understand what's the gain here. You play behind Russ for a year and try to get yourself back together, and go take over again when he's out. I'm assuming you can build up some confidence in Mike Tomlin. He obviously had confidence in you before to take you and try to do this with you. Just things aren't entirely working out. And there's a lot of young attitudes in that team. So perhaps bringing in Russ, he's hoping to try to kind of tie it all together, and then you can take over the next year. But yeah, going to the Eagles, I'm not sure what he thinks he's going to be doing. Maybe he's tired of playing football. Maybe he wants to get his bag and sit on the bench for a little bit and think about what he wants to do, and would rather do that behind Jalen Hurts and the Eagles than he would the Steelers. Perhaps it's if I'm going to be a backup, which of these teams has a better shot at a Super Bowl? I don't know if the Eagles and they're a good team. They lost a lot, but they started gaining a lot as well. So I think they've got some big chances for sure. But I'd still feel weird. Maybe he's a big Saquon Barkley fan. I was like, I'm following him. I'm playing with Saquon one way or the other. I can't really put my finger on why he would want to go there. And maybe he didn't want to go to Philly. He just wanted to go out of Pittsburgh. But even then, there's not many other teams that I feel like would trade. I don't think a team looking for a starter would be trading for Kenny at the moment, and that's nothing against his ability. I'm just not sure that would happen. Not right before the draft. I'm sure teams are going to hope. Teams that need a starting quarterback are probably in a conversation where they are in a position where they can probably get one from the draft that they want, and hope to develop that instead. So I don't know. I was a little confused by the Kenny Pickett move, but I do think it's the most talk aboutable quarterback move. Jacoby Brissett to the Patriots is going to be interesting. They lost Mac Jones, of course. He went to that's true actually. Mac goes to Jacksonville. Forgot about that one. Not a backup originally. Starter, then made a backup.
He is one now.
Then he will be backing up Trevor Lawrence for sure now. So I guess he got used to backing up the other guy in New England. I'm forgetting his name. Bailey Zappi. I'm not trying to the other guy. That's a little rough. I think Sam Darnold to Minnesota could be a filler thing. Carolina tried that one.
Yeah, clearly.
They're giving him a lot of weapons there, but I'm not sure Minnesota's looking to keep him as the starter. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I do think that Kenny Pickett is the one to discuss. I like Tyrod Taylor switching New York teams. I think that one is a positive for that quarterback room. I'm just not sure that it's much different than what he was for the Giants quarterback room last year. They were in a similar situation, so we'll see how all that kind of develops. Other than that, though, we got some pretty big, I think, defensive things here and there. The biggest one, I guess, is today that Aaron Donald announced his retirement. So the Rams are going to lose a major piece of that defense because he is calling it quits. But that is, that's completely in his wheelhouse. We thought he might have done it after they won the Super Bowl, but he held out for a little bit longer, and he is officially retired. So I wish him the best in his retirement. Kyler Murray has already tweeted and said, "Thank you, God, for letting Aaron Donald retire." A little bit of jokes between divisional rivals there. Bobby Wagner goes to the Commanders on a small deal. Patrick Queen switches up on his divisional Ravens and goes to the Steelers, which is like an active war in the AFC North. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Jordan Poyer does the same in the AFC East and goes from Buffalo to Miami. And Jordan Poyer is already kind of a hot-headed guy occasionally, so that's a big thing. Shaq Barrett switches Florida teams and then goes over to Miami. So big moves on defense here and there. Not the biggest moves, there's not as much of a splash on defense. I think we covered the biggest in Brian Burns so far. Going to join that New York defense is probably the biggest defensive move we've had so far. It's been a heavily offensive focused free agency, but there have been some good moves. CJ Gardner-Johnson actually leaves Detroit to go to go over to Philly and hopefully not continue his beef with AJ Brown. they're gonna have to put that one behind them. That was an interesting move. The Eagles fans did not seem super happy that he's returning, but he is returning. He was there before. He said on a stream after leaving Philly that the worst part about Philly was the people. Now he's gonna be back in Philly. Though from what I
Yeah,
saw,
that's funny.
yeah. Funny enough, though, what I saw on the comments of that post is that all the Philly fans were like, "Yeah, he's right. That's the worst part for sure." So, and I was wrong. Cowboys actually did add a person after getting rid of Leighton Vander Esch. They added Eric Kendricks from the Chargers, so another piece of the Chargers
Okay.
going down. Cowboys adding a defensive piece 2 days ago. Missed that one a little bit. So yeah, some moves on defense. Maybe actually the C.J. Gardner-Johnson is a big thing for the Eagles. They already have a pretty good defense, but that's not a bad person to to throw into the mix. I mean, his attitude is definitely something, but he is usually able to back it up with playing. The Dolphins lost a lot of defensive players, kind of just to the winds, or Christian Wilkins to the Raiders. Um, so I do like them adding Shaq Barrett and Jordan Poyer. I think those are good fill-ins. So yeah, I don't know. What is there any defensive move that stands out to you? I think culturally and player-wise, I also think that Patrick Queen to the Steelers. Steelers already have a tough defense. He's going to add some toughness there, and obviously that division hates each other, so that's gonna add a lot there too.
Yeah, I feel like the Saquon thing, of him going to the Giants, like maybe you can make an argument about what rivalry is deeper, Jesus. But for me, it seems like it's like Steelers Ravens has always been the epitome, like to me, because the games always end up the same way, and the Ravens haven't even been in the league that long, right? I know the whole thing with them stealing the Browns from Cleveland and everything with that, but still they've only been playing since '96. So for that rivalry to have gotten that hated this fast, and all the games end up the same way, like just low scoring, like even with like some of the great offensive weapons that these teams have had over the years, they still always end up really low scoring, hard, tough defensive games. And for a Ravens linebacker to go to the Steelers, like I can't off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure James Harrison used to play for the Ravens when he like very first got in the league, but I don't think he played like long. I think he was like just a practice squad guy there, and then he went to the Steelers. So like outside of that, I can't think of a single guy that went from one team or the other like that was really a top star like this on offense or defense, but especially defense, which is what these teams are known for. And a linebacker to do it, like I feel like that should be a bigger deal than Saquon, to be honest. Like people threatening, wishing death on Saquon. Like Patrick Queen moving is such a huge move to me, especially for the
Yeah,
Steelers. Like everybody's been talking, and for good reason. Like they haven't been able to really replace Ryan Shazier since he got injured and had to retire and everything. Like they haven't had that linebacker present, and obviously TJ, but edge rusher, that kind of classification. So you really haven't had that inside kind of linebacker, you know, since 2017, 2018, which is I think when Ryan got injured. So like, they absolutely needed this. I mean, their defense is already really good, of course, but it only just got better. So obviously now you got Derrick Henry in that division too. So you need that run defense is absolutely going to need to get better. So to just kind of go back to this rivalry. I mean, you go to the NFL page, you look at their post for this. The first comment, the first reply is someone saying Queen was pretty mediocre before Roquan Smith came to town. Just saying, like, and that's a Ravens fan that's pissed off that he's now in Pittsburgh. So for me, that not just culturally, but on the field, like this is probably the biggest move to me. Um, Obviously, Aaron Donald retiring makes a big impact. CJ the menace, going back to Philly is hilarious. I thought he fit in Detroit, but I guess he fits in Philly too. Maybe he realizes that he's just like the people in Philly. So I would say those kind of come off the top of my head. The Neil Hunter going to Houston. Like Houston is building a squad down there. It's ridiculous how fast they've been able to rebuild. Like
that's a big one.
they were picking at the top of the draft. They were ahead of us as far as draft wise position until we made that trade. And look at how fast they've made a turnaround compared to us. Right. So Houston, they're building a squad down there. I mean, Jordan Poyer, you mentioned it going to Miami. That's just a 1-year deal. We'll see how that one kind of turns out. But Bobby Wagner kind of leaving. That one surprised me because he came back to Seattle after he was in LA for like what, a season, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And
Short
then
time.
yeah, so like just 1 year. Then he came back to Seattle. And then to leave again. Like pretty good contract though. I mean, for sure. And dude was really good last season too. So I mean, I'm not gonna disparage him. I'm just surprised that the Seahawks let it happen, but I don't anticipate him coming back again. In that case, but you did mention Eric Kendricks coming out of LA, so to the Cowboys, Eric Armstead going to
Yeah,
Jacksonville out of San Fran. So San Francisco obviously they fired Steve Wilkes after the season, after the
interesting.
Super Bowl, I guess. Really, yeah, everybody was talking about that move. So yeah, for the most part, defense hasn't been like as huge. I'd say a lot more minor moves defensively, but you got some guys that are moving around. Um, you know, I want to just switch to the Panthers real quick. Just this isn't a Panther program, but we've let so many of our defensive guys go. Our defensive stalwarts, pretty much our young studs. I mean, the guys that have been the backbone of that defense since they came into the league 5-6 years ago. All those guys are gone now, so I don't. And I understand they got to fix the offense, but like this is kind of what the Steelers were doing, for the past 10 years. Like the offense would be really good and the defense wasn't as good, and then defense has really been carrying, since really the last few years have been being up there as the QB. Panthers, like now you want to put so much into the offense. We get a couple guards signed. You get Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, gave Robert Hunt 100 mil. Like cool, I guess, but
I like Robert Hunt, but that's
yeah, and we signed some defensive guys. Ashawn Robinson, like DJ. I mean, we've signed some guys. We got Troy Hill, we got Dane Jackson, we got Jordan Fuller. I think like an hour ago. Like
yeah,
we've made moves, but I just don't know. Like I feel like you got to have some kind of balance here. Um, Obviously, we didn't have to give up too much to get Deontay Johnson, but like we just cannot go in this year like with the same offense. I get that, but we can't just go into the year with completely front loading the offense, adding all these guys, adding all these pieces. If they're going to do that in the draft, and then the defense, we don't really have any stars out there. Like I don't get it. I mean, and I don't want to compare it to the Texans again, but I mean, just look at where the Texans were last year. Look at where we were last year, and now this season into this off season into the next season. Like, I mean, they're just outclassing us in every single way.
yeah, it's rough. I mean, the Panthers have made good pickups as far as the people. 100 million to Robert Hunt is a rough one. I do like Robert Hunt. Would like to keep him for sure. That's a good player to add to our O line. Our O line has still been suffering the past few years. But I mean, Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, good pickups. It's just that's 150 million right there to those two. And we still don't have a lot of weaponry going on. I mean, Deontay Johnson should hopefully be pretty good. And we have added, defensive guys like you said. Ashawn Robinson is going to be good. Or Kalavon Chasen, I think is his last name, is going to be hopefully a good pickup. DJ Wanham, Jordan Fuller, all those guys are going to be, I think, fun pickups for the defense. It's just that I feel like we lost so much in Frankie Louvu and Brian Burns. It's really hard to fill up those gaps, and it hurts to look at the other young teams for sure and be like, oh well, they're making good use of it. I mean, the Texans have put a lot together really quickly and are quickly kind of surging up to be a pretty solid team. I'm hoping that Dave Canales, we're taking a gamble on a young head coach, same thing the Texans did. I hope that works out for us. I hope that he can, bring that offensive mind to Carolina and try to get something going. I don't think that we need a defensive minded coach at the moment. I would have loved to have still had Steve Wilkes. I wouldn't complain about that one. But right now, I would hate that our defense is being like picked apart and that we aren't doing a whole lot of big moves for our offense and we don't have the draft capabilities to pick up somebody in the first round. So I would say the Panthers are looking a little rough as far as free agency goes. No, I wouldn't say any bad signings except for maybe the money going to Robert Hunt. But it is there's some big people, big moves going on. this offseason, and I don't know, especially considering the season of I saw an Instagram comment called it op season, where everybody went to their divisional rival. It would have been great if we would have been had our hat a little more in the ring for Mike Evans, right? Got two of his former coaches from last season. It would have been great to try to kind of seduce him over to Carolina. That would have fit the theme of this year's offseason, but fortunately we come up a little short on that one. Don't know if we're going to get into the T Higgins race. So it is a little rough as a Panthers fan to kind of watch everything spiral in a different direction than I would personally like to see. But otherwise, I think if you're not a Panthers fan and maybe not a Cowboys or Chargers fan, this has been a good free agency. Even the Commanders have made they've made a bunch of moves. They're not all big moves, but they have done a lot to change the team at the very least. So I think this has been a fun off season. I almost said off season, but there's been a lot to follow. There's been a lot of big moves. I think this is a really solid. I mean, the NFL is going to look completely different. I thinking about Kirk Cousins playing for the Falcons or Russ playing for the Steelers, or the big moves we covered on Tuesday, or then even a lot of these weapon moves. Tony Pollard not being a Cowboy is going to feel wrong. Just moves like that are pretty big. So I think this has been a pretty eventful offseason. The NFL offseason can either be really sleepy or really big. I feel like this one has gone to some great lengths so far to be a pretty active offseason.